I'm a scholar of religion and theology. I know the Bible. I teach the Bible at the university level. I teach it in churches. I've taught it in synagogues. I've taught it to believers and non-believers, religious people, secular people. And it's one of those things that I know pretty well, right? More than the average person, because I've got several degrees in it. So I got to thinking, I was like, you know what? Let me do a primer using Final Fantasy VII, the parts that are coming in Revelation, to talk about apocalyptic literature and Revelation itself. So that's what we're doing over the next, while. So tonight, we're going to just pick back up where we left off in Final Fantasy VII, and we're going to play a little bit. And I'm going to give you at least 2 teeny tiny lectures tonight, just as a way of a primer into apocalyptic literature, okay? Because here's what I know. Here's what I know about apocalyptic literature. Those that think that they know it the best oftentimes misunderstand it the most. And those that approach it with curiosity probably have it a little bit more right than those that approach it with certainty. And so tonight we're going to try to unveil our eyes a little bit to understand apocalyptic literature. Now, obviously, Revelation isn't the only book of apocalypse. Not even in the Bible, it's not the only book of apocalypse. You also have portions of Daniel and Ezekiel and some would say portions of Jeremiah or even the Psalms, but Revelation is probably the one that gets the most airtime for a lot of people, especially since the 90s when a book series called the Left Behind series came out. But apocalyptic literature is not exclusive to Christianity or Judaism. It is an ancient Near Eastern trope. It's a Babylonian trope, Egyptian apocalypse, Norse apocalypse. We call that Ragnarok or Ragnarok, as they would say. There are Asian apocalypses, and there are even like fictitious post-apocalyptic worlds. We have an obsession of those kinds of things. I want to give you a phrase that unlocks apocalyptic literature, okay? Apocalyptic literature is best understood in the context of the now and the not yet. Okay, I'm going to say that again. So if you're a note taker, I can't imagine you're taking notes on my stream, but if you are a note taker, there will be a test. Apocalyptic literature is best understood in the context of the now and the not yet. Meaning that all apocalyptic literature has a dual focus of what is happening now and what could happen in the not yet. And when we focus on one or the other, and not both, we do a disservice to understanding apocalyptic literature. And so some would say the book of Revelation is just about Rome, current day Rome. Yes, that's true. It is about Rome, but it's also about the Rome and the Babylon of every age. And if you say, well, it's only about the future, it's only about the end times, it's only about when Jesus returns, or when you've got the beast of the sea and you've got the plagues and the 4 horsemen, when it's only about that and it's not about today, well, you miss the point as well. Because apocalyptic literature is meant to help people who are enduring suffering and uncertainty find a bit of peace and a bit of hope, even in the midst of some really dark and scary images, the now and the not yet. When you hold those two things in tandem, gosh, something beautiful happens. And that, I think, Chad, is where we are going in Revelation. I think it's really interesting that Remake and Rebirth have talked a lot about possibilities of the future and how that informs the now. It is the now and the not yet. And the culmination of the now and the not yet are going to collide in Revelation. And we're going to get to see the choices and the agency of the now and the possibilities, the fear and the potential victories of the not yet have a collision course like a meteor to a planet. And it is going to be really something special. That's what I'm excited about with that. Tonight, I've got a passage that we will get to in just a little bit, and it's not usually thought of as apocalyptic literature, but I do think that there are some cool things that we can get from it, okay? So with that, why don't we go ahead and get started, everybody? And let's see what we can get into tonight. Okay, let's see. What if it's a misinterpretation that the book of Revelation is apocalyptic at all? Honestly, that's not a crazy take. Some people do kind of lean that way. Again, I kind of think it's probably a both and, just because of some of the things that are said in there, and the illusion, or excuse me, the idea that in every age there is an antichrist, right? It's not just one and done. It's not just Nero, but there's always something that comes up against Christ, I guess. And so, anyway, we'll get into some of that in a few weeks. Okay, everybody, so in this next sequence, we've got Rocket Town. So a couple of things to remember here, okay? Ready for this? We already talked about this just a slight bit, but what is the number one rule of apocalyptic literature? What is it? Can anybody in the chat remind us? The key to understanding apocalyptic literature is to view it within the context of the now and the not yet. And that's true of Revelation, that's true of Egyptian, Norse, all kinds of apocalypse. So with that in mind, let's go into Rocket Town. This is going to be one of the sequences that takes place in Final Fantasy VII Revelation. All right. What the? Oh, God. We got Cid, which means I can really pull out my southern drawl. Rusty old rocket. What's a giant thing like that doing here? His head's gone. Real quick, just a reminder, we are playing the Shinra Archaeology Cut. Thanks to those guys for creating this translation. It uses not just translated from the original source code, but it's also got deleted scenes that are hidden in the source code. So, can't tell if it's a real or a fake. It's got me perplexed. I can hardly sleep at night. Welcome to the Shanghai Inn. It's 100 gil per night. How about it? Shanghai Inn in this nice southern town. It could be a Wu-Tai influence, or it could be cosplaying. If you're interested in the town, you better be asking the captain. He's the one in charge. Captain? Who's this captain? He used to be a Shinra pilot, back when the company was still trying to make money in space development. He was all set to become the world's first astronaut, but then, well, let's just say there was a little incident. Ever since, he's been smoldering away in this town, obsessed with his dream of reaching outer space. Have you met the captain yet? He's basically the front man for this town. You really ought to speak to him. That rusted out rocket's all that remains a Shinra space development program. This place used to be a Shinra rocket launch base. You've seen the tilted rocket, right? That's the Shinra number 26. She never got to fly, unfortunately. Oh, we're gonna look at the rocket together. Let's look at it. That's a good looking rocket, I'd say. No matter how many times I look at it, I still feel amazed. Sorry for making you humor me like that. I know it's an odd hobby. Here, I'll give you this as a token of my thanks. Matsunokami. So one thing that's kind of interesting here that I don't think that I realized is that between the Matsunokami and the Shanghai Inn over there, there's a huge Wu-Tai influence, which makes me wonder if in Revelation we're going to see a major Wu-Tai influence here, and that will further a bit more of Yuffie's story, even while it furthers Cid's story. So I wonder if Rocket Town is going to have a little bit more to do with like a Wu-Tai alliance. Could be interesting. There's that tiny Bronco. Now this is the part, like Rocket Town is going to be so different in the future. It's got a Shinra logo on it. The tiny Bronco, huh? Nice piece of machinery. I wonder if we could borrow it. Please ask the captain if you're interested in using it. You can find him over at the Rocket. That's where he always is. My name's Shera, by the way, and you are? I'm Cloud. Tifa, nice to meet you. I'm Aerith. I see, so you're not with Shinra. I thought you might have to come here to announce the I thought you might have come here to announce the recommencement of the Space Development Program. I heard President Rufus is coming to pay a visit. The captain's been antsy about it all morning. Not Rufus! It sure is. From Walkie Walk, we're gonna RP walk all the way over. Because that's what Cloud would do. So before we get to the rocket, I want to tell you a quick Bible story. And it actually comes further back from the ancient Near East. It's a common story that is in that part of the world. So this version of this story that I'm going to read comes from the book of Genesis, chapter 11. Now, you might have heard this before, but I want you to hear it as though it is anew. And I want you to think about Rocket Town. It goes like this. Now, the whole world had one language and a common speech. And as people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. And they said, "Come, let's build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth." But the Lord God came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. And the Lord said, "If as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so that they will not understand each other." So the Lord scattered them from there all over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. That's why it's called Babel, because that is where the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there, the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. So the Tower of Babel story as related to Rocket Town. I want to talk about that for just a second because there's a few really interesting parallels. First of all, the Tower of Babel story has connotations between the now and the not yet, one of the key pieces of apocalyptic literature, right? And so one of the things that we learn in the Tower of Babel story in any of the cultures that tells that story or their version of the story is this: when the people try to usurp the place of God up in the heavens or those who are in control, the divine pantheon or the deity comes down and confuses them. In the Genesis account, in the Hebrew Bible, this is an answer to the disobedience from Genesis 1 and 2. He says to them, "Subdue the earth, fill it, multiply." So essentially, go out into all the earth. And what happens in Genesis chapter 11? "But all the people have gathered together rather than scattering." They were supposed to fill the whole earth, and instead they located. It seems like they're united, which is a good thing. We like unity. But it is a direct indictment of, why are you together? To make a name for yourself. And that's not the role and the purpose of humanity, at least in this version of the telling. And so the divine comes down, scatters them up, and accomplishes that goal of fill the earth. It's important for humanity to fill the entire earth. Kind of interesting stuff. But let's push it a little bit further. How is the Tower of Babel story about Shinra? It says this: "They found a plain in Shinar," which is interesting. Shinar, spelled Shinar, an anagram of Shinra. Kind of interesting. Probably nothing, but I think it's interesting nonetheless. "And they said to one another, 'Let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly.' They used brick instead of stone," which is interesting because brick is a newer form of stone, a newer technology. "Tar for mortar," which is a newer form of technology versus the old ways. "And they said, 'Come, let us build ourselves a city, and in that city a tower, a ziggurat, that is going to reach up to the heavens, a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we'll be scattered over the face of the whole earth.'" Now, you scholars, you're good scholars, you know this. How does that equate to Shinra and Midgar? Think about it. In the same way, what does Shinra do? Well, they've gathered their resources. They're using the modern day, newest technology, and they're using it to essentially become as powerful in this world as the life stream. In fact, they're using the planet's energy, the planet's power, rerouting that power for their own ends. It's the Shinra Electric Power Company, and therefore they are gaining this almost divine-like power. Okay, next thing, the name Shinra literally translates to God-net, or all of creation, symbolizing a God-like corporate entity that bends nature and the planet's life force to its own will. This comes from Reddit. And a lot of people have looked at this symbol of Shinra and how it is a version of the Japanese symbol for God, which is just really, really interesting. One of the things that Nojima is doing here that I think is so cool, it's just so cool to me, is that he's equating Shinra and Midgar and their efforts to become one with divine power. Just like this story of the Tower of Babel. And what happens? The divine comes down and takes down humanity's efforts because they're not doing as they were intended to do. There's a divine order here. Let God be God, let humans be humans, let the divine pantheon be the divine pantheon. They don't meddle in the things of humans. I think that's really kind of interesting. Now, why do I tell that story here? Because as we saw a little bit earlier, Shinra had conquered the world, right? And we've got the remnants of Wutai here with Shanghai and some of the other Asian-inspired, Wutaian-inspired locales here. And then what happens after they've conquered the world? They're saying the next stop is the stars. So we're going to the stars, and yet it doesn't come to fruition. At least not yet. I just think it's a really interesting piece. Now, why is that apocalyptic? Well, because again, a story that is apocalyptic says two things. There's a context of the now, and there's a context of the not yet. The Tower of Babel story is a cautionary tale to the people of that day and also of future days that says, in the moments when we try to put ourselves on par with God or even play as though we are equals to God, those are the days that we will be humbled. And this is certainly a foreshadowing of some Disc 2 stuff. As we find out later, a confusion results in the rocket not launching and Cid and Shera not understanding each other. Yeah, so we'll get there. We'll get there in Disc 2. Isn't that cool? I think that's really neat. It's really neat. It's interesting to look at Shinra and Midgar as an analog in some ways, it's not perfect, to a Tower of Babel cautionary tale. What's the cost of using and abusing the planet, your own technology for your own ends? And as it says in Proverbs, pride does come before a fall. With that, let's continue to the rocket. Let me just pause for a second. Doesn't it feel good to get back to some good old classic lecture playing? Doesn't that feel good? It feels like nostalgia, back to our earliest days on stream, doesn't it? Doesn't that feel good? That's good stuff. Yeah, I feel like back in my bag with that one. That's good. All right, to the rocket, and to meet my favorite good old boy character. What do you folks want? Why is your eye shut? He's like winking at us. We were told we'd find the captain here. Captain, you say? Look no further. Cid. My parents named me Cid, but everyone here just calls me the captain. So what can I do for you? What can I do you for? What's the story with this rocket? Well, I'll be damned. Wouldn't have thought a youngster like you'd be interested. All right, then listen up, because Captain Cid's about to give you a little history lesson. You probably already know how Shinra developed all sorts of tech during that long, pointless war. Nowadays, his main business is Mako, but once upon a time, Shinra specialized in weapons manufacturing. One of the things they created back then was a rocket engine. The possibility of going to space caused all sorts of excitement. Our dreams became bigger than ever before. They poured more and more of their budget into the project, churning out prototype after prototype. Finally, they managed to make the rocket you're standing in now, the Shinra number 26. To fly it, they chose the best pilot in the whole company. No, the whole world. Me, as if there was ever any doubt. Long last, the day of the launch came. Everything was going as well as you could ask for. But thanks to that slowpoke Shera, the whole thing went to pot. After that, Shinra got stingy. His eyeballs are upside down, y'all. They nixed the whole space development program. After all the hope they gave us, after all their talk about space being the future, it was all over once they realized Mako could turn a better profit. Nobody so much as glanced at the space program after that. Money, cash, kale, that's all they ever cared about. My dream was just a number in a spreadsheet to them. Look at this bucket of rust. I was supposed to fly this rocket to the stars. I was supposed to be the first man in space. Now it just stands here, tilting a little more with every passing day. At this rate, who knows which will happen first, this thing falling over or me kicking the bucket. My only hope is I got left is this new president who's coming to visit. I'm not done talking to you. I got more questions. Can we just relish in this song for a moment? Listen to this. Did you hear that? Friend of the show, Professor Rich Anatone, showed me that that little riff there, that dun dun dun, are the opening notes to the opening bombing mission. Da 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 da. That whole deal, that's Cid's theme right there at the beginning, which really is interesting. If we're looking at Cid's theme and we're looking at Shinra as an analog for those who would become like God, or in a usurpation of divine power, of reaching the stars, which I think Cid's theme really is, because you're talking about the dreams of a man that dreamed of going beyond the planet, beyond the earth. And a lot of times Cid's theme evokes that kind of ambition of being more than yourself. What a great opening motif to share at the beginning of this game, right? Because in some way, Shinra, Cloud, Tifa, Avalanche, Cid, Wutai, everyone is trying to move beyond their station in life. They're trying to become more, and Cloud is trying to reclaim himself. And it's all a journey beyond their current things into the next things. And some of them do that well, and some of them do that with more selfish ambition. I think that's a really cool analog. Again, you guys, I freaking love it. So, Cloud, right? Was the captain able to help you? Not really. I see. Welcome home. You sit your down and drink your GDT. Dang it, now you got me all riled up. No, Shera, I'll be out back tuning up the Bronco. Don't forget that tea, you hear me? Poor Shera. Sorry about that. We must have set him off. Don't worry about it. He's always like that. Always? And you just keep quiet while he lays into you like that? No, it's what I deserve. If I hadn't been so clumsy. I'm the one who crushed his dream. What happened? Get your in gear. You're like a GD turtle. The moon's gonna be a different cycle by the time you're done working. It's hard to work when you got a slave driver like Cid in the room. Dear Lord. Sorry, sir. Stop wasting time checking those oxygen tanks. You're a diligent worker, Shera, and that's a good thing. But it's pointless fussing around this much. I know you got brains. Now pick up the pace and put them to use. Sorry, his eyeball is not there. Captain, our dream is finally coming true. We all wink. We're so proud to be part of the launch of Shinra number 26. Preparations are all complete, Captain. All that's left is liftoff. All right, just leave it to me. I'll be back before you know it. Now we can open our eyes. You can do it, Captain. Fly our dream to outer space. Thanks, fellas. We'll be praying for you, sir. All systems are go. The Shinra number 26 is ready for launch. Commencing countdown. At long last. What's going on? Come in, Captain Cid. We have an emergency situation. One of the mechanics is still on board in the engine room. What? Who is this little? Unclear, sir. Patching you through to the engine room. Hey, which one of you is still on board? It's me, Captain. Shera, please don't worry about me. Just go ahead with the launch. Oh, she wants to sacrifice herself. No, he's going to sacrifice himself. No. Shera, that room's going to be hotter than piss in a desert. If you're still in there, you'll be burnt to a crisp. You hear me? You're gonna die. I don't mind. If I can just get this fixed, the rocket launch will be a success. I'm nearly done. Nearly done? You're gonna die in there, Shera. Cid, we're running out of time. We've got to commence countdown. Starting engine. Engine ignition in T-minus 15 seconds. Shipboard temperature rising. Moon, outer space, my dream. Engine ignition achieved. Ah! Tower of Babel, right there. Womp womp. And that's where she is to this day. He flipped the emergency shutdown switch. He canceled the launch to save my life. After that, the space program was scaled back and all further plans to launch a rocket were suspended. So you see, it's my fault. It's because of me, Cid's dream slipped from his grasp. That's why I don't mind. It doesn't matter what the captain thinks of me. I need to make up for what I did to him. Before we go any further, let me just say, I understand why Cid and Shera are probably going to be renegotiated in Revelation. Because this does give the vibe that, even a subtle vibe, that Shera feels like she deserves it, which is a valid story to tell, but you've got to be so careful with that. Like, it's got to come off as not justified from Cid's part, especially in today's world where there are far more stories just like this. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so they're having to be really careful and delicate with that, and I applaud them. I'm curious what they're going to do. But Cid is already a little bit softer. I wonder if there's going to be a moment where he snaps in Revelation. I wonder if he does take it out on Shera to some degree as well. Basically, we're on the hunt for Sephiroth. If I'm not mistaken, he's trying to reach the Promised Land. Promised Land? Paradise overflowing with Mako energy. At least that's what Shinra believes. But we don't actually know what kind of place it is or where it's even located. And under her Promised Land shall the Cetra one day return. By her loving grace and providence, may they find what fate has set aside. Now that is a really interesting statement. Again, in the Shinra archaeology cut, Aerith saying something that Barrett says in Remake in the Shinra building. Under her Promised Land shall the Cetra one day return. By her loving grace and providence, may they find what fate has set aside. Now, tonight, we have been talking about apocalyptic literature. Remember what our rule is for apocalyptic literature, everybody? The key to understanding apocalyptic literature is within the context of the now and the not yet. And so this here, I would say that this phrase right up here is what we would call an apocalyptic premonition or an apocalyptic statement. Because Aerith here is saying, under her Promised Land shall the Cetra one day return. There's a future element, but that future element denotes a current hope. The current hope of this current suffering will one day end in the revelation to come. By her loving grace and providence, may they find what fate has set aside. Oftentimes, when we speak of the Promised Land by her loving grace and providence, this is very, very deity-centric, even though it's kind of talking about the planet or perhaps even the life stream, very much by her loving grace and providence. Grace as in benevolence, mercy, compassion, providence as the preference of an entity in regulating and manipulating history. That's the Calvinistic term of providence. The idea that the divine has a plan, has a preference, and is going to govern it. It's very deterministic. And so the question is, who is the one doing the determination? The active agent here seems to be the planet, but some might say that the active agent is the Cetra because the Cetra are doing the returning. So the question is, who's in control? Is it the agency of the divine or the planet, or is it the agency of humanity that makes the return possible? You can go either way with that one. Really interesting stuff and very important in current theological discussions, even in modern day in 2026, asking who's in control, right? Anyway, it's not like the ancients knew where the Promised Land was either. You search and you travel until one day you feel it and you realize, oh, this is the Promised Land. Which, if you remember my video a few years ago, back in 2024, 23, right before Rebirth came out, on thin places. This corresponds to that. You search and you travel until one day you feel it. There's a Celtic understanding of a reality known as thin places. When our current world and eternity's world, the unseen supernatural world, there's a thin divide in certain places. We think of this in places like Stonehenge or the Isle of Skye, just off the coast of Ireland. And in those places, it's believed that you are closest to the divine. At least that's what our ancients in the real world believed. So, Aerith Nojima is kind of channeling some of that real world mythology into this moment. I think that's really cool. Now, intuitive realization, that's a really interesting thought. So it's not necessarily we are all a part of God, but at least in Christian theology, the idea is two things. Number one, that all people bear the image of God. And that's not unique to Christianity or Judaism. That's something that ancient Near Eastern cultures, including the Babylonians, even to a degree the Canaanites, believed that people were made in the divine image. Judaism and Christianity expanded that to a non-physical, non-visible representation, but instead it's more of a more purposeful image likeness, that God is creator and humanity co-creates with God. They really lean into that idea of co-creating in the garden. Go, be fruitful, multiply, take the earth, subdue it, fill the earth, as we talked about with Babel and Rocket Town a little bit earlier. So it's not that they're a part of God, but they bear God's image. But there's also an interesting phrase that is, God has set eternity in their hearts. So there is this unique connection of humanity with the divine there. And so that is where there's that sensing sort of thing that comes into play. It's really interesting stuff. A little bit more mystic, and to understand a little bit more mystical things, if you're readers, you might want to read some Teresa of Avila, The Interior Castle, talks about that, and then also Julian of Norwich. Those are two really interesting. So everybody, if you take nothing else from tonight, just remember the two main things that we talked about, right? The Tower of Babel, and I want you to keep thinking about that Midgar, Shinra, Tower of Babel sort of mentality. I think there's a really cool parallel there. And then finally, remember, as we continue in this apocalyptic literature exploration, remember that the best way to read apocalyptic literature is in the context of the now and the not yet. We're going to be doing that starting with the book of Revelation, probably a little bit next week, because as we get into the Temple of the Ancients, there's a lot of temple imagery, both in Ezekiel and in Revelation, and we're going to get into that. So, some really great stuff. If you are interested in Final Fantasy VII, or you're interested in apocalyptic literature, biblical studies, religious studies, all that stuff, you want to be here next week. With that, walk tall, my friends, and we'll see you in class. Bye. Have a great weekend.